I'm the Trading Standards Institute's lead officer for legal metrology. So in terms of legislation, weights and measures is now almost exclusively driven by policy and law that emanates from the European Union, and it has been like that since the mid-1970s. Increasingly less and less domestic national UK-based law on legal metrology, because the whole concept of weights and measures is that it doesn't respect national boundaries. So businesses trade across European and global marketplaces. So it's only right and proper that the regulation of those marketplaces are on a bigger scale than national boundaries. I think that in terms of the impact of EU membership on consumers with regards to legal metrology, it has helped to drive standards up. It has improved levels of consumer protection. It has harmonised and provided a uniformity of levels of protection. And from a business perspective, it has provided ease of access to markets. It has reduced technical barriers to trade, and it has promoted the free movement of goods and services around the European Union. If the UK leaves the EU, there's the very distinct potential for there to be divergent regulatory systems, because we will either choose to replicate what is effectively the mirror image of existing legal controls, or at the opposite end of the scale, we may produce entirely new legal controls that are different from those that we've been used to for the last 40 to 50 years. And if we replicate the existing controls, then business is going to have to change systems and procedures, and it's going to cost them money. If we change the systems of controls, that will increase costs even more. It's much, much better for businesses and consumers to have one common set of standards that everybody understands and that everybody adheres to. Brexit probably does not really present any significant opportunities for consumers or businesses in those three key areas for legal metrology: units of measurement, regulation of weighing and measuring instruments, and quantity control systems. We, for example, are not going to go back to an imperial system of weights and measures, because trade is predicated upon a commonality and a uniformity of systems and procedures. So if we're trying to sell a pound of bananas and somebody's expecting a kilogram of bananas, you've got a disconnect. And virtually all of the developed economies in the world use the metric system. So the ability for us to choose to make change is probably not going to happen in legal metrology. So the potential benefits are very, very small, and the potential negative impacts could be significantly larger if we choose to diverge from the existing systems of control. I only see potentially negative outcomes for consumers and businesses in relation to legal metrology. I would very much welcome the protection of the status quo in terms of the legal arrangements and the systems and the procedures and the networks of cooperation that we already have. And I would want to see them maintained, irrespective of whether we choose to implement new national provisions or maintain existing provisions and replicate what is currently happening. I think that the levels of consumer protection and the levels of fair trading in the marketplace for businesses are already good, they are already high, and I would want to see those maintained wherever possible. I think that there's a considerable risk that the UK will lose what is probably at the moment its preeminent status as being a leader in legal metrology, because we will no longer participate in technical and other professional working groups that are either EU-based or, to possibly a lesser extent, internationally based. So things like the European Cooperation in Legal Metrology, for example, we will be excluded from that because we're no longer an EU member. And our role in global organisations like the International Organisation of Legal Metrology will also have the potential to be diminished because we're no longer a part of the EU. So our prominence and our role in these organisations has probably the bigger potential to be diminished rather than enhanced. In terms of professional expertise, if you have to deal with European-based law, it's much easier to understand that because you have 28 member states who are all complying with one set of harmonised controls. If we then invent new systems and procedures, then those are only going to be unique to the United Kingdom. Why would we specialise in that? The one thing that I would really welcome from central government would be a clear strategy in relation to legal metrology. We have it for other trading standards functions. Take, for example, food. So we have DEFRA as the central government department that's in charge of food. They use an agency called the Food Standards Agency to hold local authorities to account, to assess their performance in making sure that food in the United Kingdom is safe from the farm to the fork. And local authorities are accountable to the Food Standards Agency. But we don't have that same strategy and that same policy in the United Kingdom for legal metrology. And if we could replicate that system of control that we have for food and legal metrology, I think that would be a significant step forward and a major advantage, and would help hold local authorities to account and drive resources coming into the profession, because local authorities would be required to invest in legal metrology. We need to identify, is it the Department for Exiting the EU? Is it the Department for Business, Energy and Industrial Strategy? Is it another government department for international development, perhaps, that we need to speak to? So there's a lack of clarity about who actually is taking the lead in terms of Brexit and to whom we should communicate. So that presents the Trading Standards Institute with a difficulty in terms of communication. So I think clarity around about that issue would be a good point.